I want to continue a conversation about religious freedom because I want you to understand how important, like RFRA, this Religious Freedom Restoration Act. We have a national one, and then about 27, 20, maybe a little bit more states have RFRAs, a state version of it. And people say, well, it's really not that important. Why are we all worried about religious freedom and its protection? Well, I want to give you a glimpse of what is happening in Europe. And I tracked a lot of this when I was at the U.S. Commission on International Religious Freedom. But we need to be grateful for our First Amendment protections of religious freedom and the freedom of speech. The Family Research Council is out with a new report, and it's entitled, Is Prayer a Crime? Government Restrictions on Prayer in Europe. And here to highlight this report is the author, Arielle Del Turco. She is the director of the Center for Religious Freedom here at the Family Research Council. Arielle, welcome to Washington Watch. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
All right, I have to say, as I read through the report, this is shocking in how, and this is not prayer with a megaphone interrupting people. These are cases of silent prayer. Even one case where if you were in this restricted zone and you were praying in your house and you did it in front of a window, they could charge you with a crime.
Yeah, this report was inspired by Vice President J.D. Vance's recent speech at the Munich Security Conference. And most of these addresses that are given at this conference are focused on external threats to European security and their way of life, like Russia or China. But J.D. Vance took the opportunity to highlight something that really needs to be revealed, and that's some of the crises that's happening within Europe's borders, this crisis of their identity, particularly around the free speech issue, really noting which way are they going to go? Are they going to look like Russia, which is happy to restrict free speech and freedom of religion, or are they going to hold on to their Western values? So we've documented over a dozen cases, mainly in the UK, but also in other countries in Europe, where prayer has been restricted, and people have faced arrest, fines, or criminal charges simply for praying.
So it's important to note that as this report, and this is the reason for the report, because people were dismissive of what the vice president had to say when he was there in Europe. These are not one-offs. I mean, this is a pattern. There's a clear pattern that's emerging. And it's not just, a lot of them do have to do with people that were silently praying outside of abortion clinics. It really looks like they are protecting these abortion clinics even more so than the Biden administration did, although it's probably on par. But it goes beyond that. One case was Dr. Richard Scott, who was a practitioner at Bethesda Medical Center, and I guess this is is this in the UK? I think this was in the UK as well, where he was simply praying, offering to pray with his patients, and I mean he came under, was fined actually, and forced to undergo counseling for offering to pray with his patients.
Yeah, this really shows what some of these European countries, especially their political leadership, value. Less and less they value religious freedom and the right even to pray with a patient who's emotionally and physically hurting and might really welcome that spiritual and emotional support, or the right to pray even silently in your own head outside of an abortion clinic. Some of these woke values, the value to be protected from religion, is taken much more seriously by these political leaders than the very core human right to express your beliefs and to pray, whether that's out loud, standing outside of an abortion facility respectfully, or within your own head near an abortion facility. We're seeing that abortion is taken much more seriously than free speech and religious freedom. And the State Department and Vice President Vance is absolutely right to be raising awareness about this. It's deeply concerning.
Yeah, I made reference to this, but I want to read this particulars of this. This was, and by the way, folks, you can get a copy of this report at tonyperkins.com. It's also available on the Stand Firm app. But this was in Scotland. After Scotland passed the Abortion Services Act of 2024, Edinburgh residents received letters from the government stating this, quote, activities in a private place, such as a house, within the area between the protected premises and the boundary of a zone could be an offense if they can be seen or heard within the zone and are done intentionally or recklessly. Now, when asked by a BBC reporter if praying by your window in your home could be a crime under the buffer zone law, Scottish Parliament member Gillian McKay responded, that depends on who's passing by the window. That's just crazy.
Yeah. It's insane. And we can take these rights for granted. We can take religious freedom for granted and think, well, as long as I'm not preaching on a street corner or causing a ruckus, they're going to leave me alone. But when these countries no longer value religious freedom, when our government doesn't want to protect religious freedom, we're not going to be safe anywhere, including our own private spaces and homes. So
this report is very instructive. Number one, it shows that the vice president was correct in raising this issue. I know everybody, hair on fire that he would say this, how unprofessional, how offensive. But the reality is it's happening there. And it should inform our foreign policy and how we deal with these countries. And so that's number one. But number two, Arielle, I think it's important that we understand how precious religious freedom is and why we need those protections like the Religious Freedom Restoration Act that ensures that we don't become like Europe. And we could easily become that way because we were trending that way under the Biden administration.
Absolutely. Religious freedom is a right that needs our cultural support but in addition to our legal support. It really relies on the backbone of the American people to practice their faith and to do it in public and out loud, but also to value religious freedom. And we're seeing the State Department really take human rights and religious freedom seriously as they start to interact with some of these European countries, including regarding trade. We saw the State Department just today say that they were monitoring one of the cases featured in our report, and that it would be informing how they interact with the United Kingdom. So I think that's really good news because these things matter.
Arielle, we just have about 30 seconds left. I know we hit all the high points, but is there anything else that you would like to share about the report?
No, you can find it online at frc.org/prayer in Europe or the other locations you mentioned, Tony. But yeah, I think this is very instructive for how Americans should protect religious freedom at home. And the State Department and President Trump should be speaking about religious freedom abroad. So I'm happy to see them doing that.
Well, great work. Thanks for the report, and thanks for joining us today, Arielle.
Thank you.